Hello and welcome back to my channel. It is Crystal one-on-one time and we are at the Carnival Gardens, which is so green and so serene in Nakuru. My guest today is the president of the Uganda Law Society and also a public relations practitioner. She has so much more going on, which I found out about recently. I mean, she was even on radio at some point. Please welcome Pheona Wall.
Hi, Crystal.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. Happy to be here.
Welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I think before we even go anywhere in this interview,
Yes.
your second name that you go by,
Oh,
Wall.
yes.
People would say, but what Ugandan is this? You know?
Very Ugandan. Very Ugandan.
Yes, that's
it's
your
my
married name.
husband's name, and he's from just, West Nile.
Okay.
He just has a cool name.
Really?
Yeah.
He's from West Nile?
Yeah, I think God was thinking of me when he gave him that name.
Why you wanted a fancy name?
Well, I think that the work that I do requires me to be as neutral as possible. And I think in a country where people place you by your name, I think it's nice to have a name where nobody can place you anywhere. So they have to take you as you come.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's
So
a
I
good
actually
point.
enjoy that about my name because I feel very Ugandan. I was born and bred in Jinja. My parents met in Mbale.
Okay.
I'm from Kanungu, you know. Then my
Originally
husband is
from
yeah,
Kanungu.
my husband's from West Nile, and then I have all this family from all over. So I think I feel very Ugandan, and sometimes I don't like us speaking on tribal lines. So I believe strongly that God was thinking of me when He gave him that name.
It's like, oh, there is a wife
Yes.
for you.
Yes, who will need this name?
Who will need this
Yes.
name? Well, you talked about growing up in Jinja.
Yes.
And when I was reading about you, it seems you were all like literally on government scholarship, at least from high school, all the way up to university.
That makes me sound privileged.
Not privileged at all. It just
Yes.
means that you worked hard and you were rewarded, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Well, I have a very choleric mother. She really, drove me to be the best. If you needed help, I was really poor at math. She'll get someone to coach you. My parents, I think I was very blessed because my parents were very involved in my education.
Okay.
They were very interested. I remember every
They
time.
have a background in education?
No, they used to work in Nightil, and my dad was the head of industrial chemistry there, and my mom was on the switchboard. Romantic, right?
Oh, wow.
But they were very interested in our education, all of us. So if they couldn't fix you, if they couldn't fix your problem with math, they would get someone to tutor you. Then we also had, and Jinja was a lovely place to grow up in because the village brought you up. You knew everybody. Then I think my dad loved the sciences, so he
said he was a
very
chemist?
personally involved in my training. Yes,
Okay.
for that. And my mom taught me to read using one of her novels, The Lady in the Lake, Perry Mason. I was
And
like
you remember that?
3 years old, and she was teaching me to read using a novel, a penguin book. So I think that they've had a great influence on me. And also being a firstborn, and my parents were also sort of leaders in their families. So you'd find that we would host a lot of people. Jinja was a beautiful place, so everybody who lived in Kampala would come for holidays and things like that. And then you're the firstborn, you're the person they show off. So there's
even
a lot
your
of
parents were
pressure
like the elder
sometimes.
siblings as well?
Yes. So there's a bit of pressure to make them proud. My parents gave me everything. We were not very rich or whatever, but we came first as children. It was so easy to see up to now. Imagine last night my mom called me at about 11 and she's like, I haven't heard from you. Are you fine? My dad had just called asking the same thing. So I feel that I've been blessed to have people that really care. And when you have people that really care, you try. So, but both my parents are very performance driven. So I guess I felt that pressure to perform.
Do you feel you also get that ambition you have, the The drive you have,
I don't
your
feel
work
I'm very
ethic.
ambitious. I feel like I'm very
Really?
need
Pheona?
driven. I like feeling needed.
We shall talk about this. Okay.
Yeah, I love it when I'm useful. Yes, I love it when I'm useful. So if I feel that I'm needed somewhere, I'll give my all.
Okay.
Yes, I am goal oriented. Everywhere I go, I will set goal structures. I'm very structured again because maybe of how I grew up. But the thing that satisfies me the most is I love people. So if I'm making a difference in someone's life, it's when I was about 6, would go to the village and my mom would collect all these clothes and shoes and stuff and take them to the kids. But that day that they'll come to collect them, I'd gather all the children and start teaching them, even the older ones. It's just been an addiction to service. I like feeling needed. That's the only way I can put it.
So tell me, how do you respond to someone telling you you can't do something?
Oh, that's usually the way to get me to do something. Yeah, I remember.
I had a feeling.
Yes, I remember somebody telling me. I remember when I was leaving my O level, my dad, my parents literally want me to do law and I want to do medicine. So there's that fight. I was 16 and very impetuous, and so I passed very well. So I went to Navisusa. I was in Namagunga. So I went to Navisusa and got myself a place for PCB.
Really?
Then my mom was like, Fiona,
so you had a place in Namagunga?
Yeah,
for arts.
Yeah, for arts. But I felt I should just chase my dreams. My parents and my teachers were on a frolic of their own. And I remember my mom telling me, Fiona, and they'd all told me I can't do medicine because I didn't like math.
Oh,
So I was like, no, I'm going to do math very well and prove you wrong. So I did math really well. And then I was like, let me go get a place. So when I got a place, I remember my mom telling me, God has given you I met Christ at a very young age. So she said, God has given you your school back. He's given you the course that comes naturally to you. Why would you do this? Then she said, you choose this journey, means your parents are not on this journey with you. And maybe God is also on this journey with you.
oh,
So Crystal, I just called myself up and went to Namagung and did my course. And I am so happy that I did that. But also getting into law school the first day that dawns, the lecturers come in and terrify you and tell you if you're a Christian and you want to pray on Sunday, this is not the course for you. So I got up and filled mass communication forms.
Are you serious?
I was like, yeah, I'm changing course. So I went home to tell my mom about it, and my uncle was there. He's a lawyer. And he looks at me and he says, I knew you couldn't do law.
Well, there it is.
Yeah, so I just tore it up and went and did law.
Like, what did you say?
So it's not very nice to tell me I can't. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
growing up in Ginger, at least I think everyone I've met talked to who's grown up in Ginger, they just have all these wonderful memories. I'm almost a little bit jealous.
You should be.
Because it's such a beautiful town, a
It
beautiful
was.
community. Okay, so when you had to go to Namagunga,
Yes.
you did very well, I think, in primary.
Yes.
Yeah, you're leaving exams.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
That was a miracle because I told you, I think I did not explain how poor in math I was.
You
I was
really struggled?
Really, really poor. And the big problem was I argue about everything. Okay, I used to. Now I think, life has mellowed
So this
me
is why the
down.
parents are like, this one needs to be a lawyer.
Yes. So I had an opinion about everything, and I didn't understand in mathematics. They want to see the methodology. So I'd figure out the answer.
And you're like, but the answer's right.
Yeah, and the teacher is like, no, you have to go back and do the methodology, and that didn't make sense. So I
Show
kept
the
doing it my
working.
way and failing and doing very poorly. And then I was also addicted to novels.
Uh-huh.
So I was reading novels. I wasn't really reading the way
Where
I
were
should.
you getting the books from?
There's a big, beautiful library called Global Library in Ginger. The librarian loved me. I had like 3 library cards. And then my school friends, I was in Victoria Nile School and it had a lovely library. And my friends in like books, so I had all their library cards. But my parents knew I had this weakness, so they'd check my bag, they'd check. So I became a smuggler. I had books under my bed. I had books. I had a small, I was like a real smuggler because I had a small inset in my school bag that had novels. My parents never knew it. Yes. So I was totally addicted to stories. Mm-hmm. I even used to write them, so that distracted me from school a lot. Mm. So I remember my P7, my dad telling me, Fiona, if you're not going to 4 and you don't go to Namagunga, I'm not going to pay your fees because you're being negligent. I said, mm-hmm. What? Oh my God. So I started trying to, better myself. And then I don't know how much time you have. I have this really strange testimony. Mm.
Imagine coming home to a vacation each day, to a place of pure serenity, a place of pure luxury for you to entertain and unwind. At Jacana Heights, dreams come true. Take your pick from spacious 1, 2, or 3 bedroom apartments and luxurious 4-bedroom penthouses, built to international standards with fine, exceptional finishing. Located on Konge Hill, Buziga, with incredible views and a fresh breeze from the nearby Lake Victoria. It's a place for your body, soul, and mind, with a wide array of amenities. Contact us for more information. Jacana Heights, luxury hilltop living.
So I started trying to, better myself. And then I don't know how much time you have. I have this really strange testimony. Mm. I was struggling in math, and my favorite teacher, who was the headmaster, Mr. Gawaya, unfortunately passed away recently. May his soul rest in peace. He really liked me, and for someone to like me, it causes pressure on me to perform well and impress them, because I was such a people pleaser. So I was trying so hard in math. And I remember the time that I tried the hardest was my pre-PLE, and I failed worse than I'd ever failed before. I got like a 36%. And he put me in front of it. Like, everybody laughed at me because I never performed that poorly. And Victoria Nile School was a school that people really performed well. And I was laughed at. And then they said they were going to do another pre-PLE exam. And Ginger was a small community. Mm-hmm. So then they told us the pre-PLE we were going to do had been done by another school called Narambai. Mm-hmm. So all the parents in Ginger, in Narambai, gave all the parents in Victoria these papers.
No
now
way!
I'm declaring this. So
you naughty parents.
Yeah, but you see, one of the things that happened that time is I just given my life to Christ. Mm. So when these parents
you
started
were like
talking
12
about
years
this,
old at that point. Yes,
I was 12. Mm-hmm. But I'd given my life to Christ when I was 10. So, and since then I'd been addicted to my new book, the Bible. And I had this whole judgmental thing going on. You didn't want to meet me. I was a self-righteous little thing.
It's part of the journey.
Yeah, so I assured my parents at that time that I was not going to cheat.
Oh.
And I remember someone telling me sarcastically, but Pheona, even if you cheated in math, you'd still not even get a 50. I was man. Oh God. But so what happens is I do this exam without looking at those papers. And then the headmaster comes in and reads the results, and then he calls me forward. No, he first calls the best person had 100%, no wonder. Then he says Pheona, and then he says 14. Oh God! So I start crying, and I was so dramatic. I used to cry so hard. So by the time I reached the front, I was just sobbing like I'd lost somebody, and I crunched up my paper and walked away. And he's like, "Look at the paper," and I look at the paper, and I have 98%.
No.
Yes. And then I look, and then I start even crying more because I don't understand this. And then he says, "Read this out to the class." So I read it. I'm like 98. Then he's like, "And what's on top?" And I looked -2. So he's like, "You see, class, Pheona got 100%. But because it's Pheona, she gets 100 in other subjects. She cannot get anything beyond maybe 80 in math. So because it's Pheona, I've removed 2% because I think she cheated. And yet the whole class knew what I'd done. For me, that was a shining moment of God just confirming that if I trust him, that if I stick by him, however hard it is, he'll come through for me. That was an amazing testimony. I remember going home and my mom saw me and then I burst into tears and she was like, I knew it. You know, we didn't have mobile phones, but if you did something at school, by the time you got home, your mother knew about it. So she said, she looked at me, she knew today that the results were coming. So she said, I knew it. I told you to revise, at least look at those papers. Now, then I showed her my paper. And then she said, oh, I'm so sorry, you know. So that was a big testimony for me. So performing well was not just something that just came. It was God showing through for me. Around P7, my dad left his job in Nightingale and we struggled financially. And I was going to S1 and I remember I'm a control freak a bit. It's freak a bad word, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
I have control issues sometimes.
I tell people all the time that if you really want to know if you have any control issues, have children.
Exactly.
Then it comes out bright.
So I sort of felt that I controlled the way things were at home. I think it was just an egotistical thing.
Or maybe because you're the oldest as
maybe
well?
because I was oldest. So I didn't like that I wasn't sure how they would do and everything. So I kept praying. So God was good. I used to pray every day. So I had this funny, quirky habit. I'd go to the bathroom every day. Now I'm telling. and kneel down and say, Lord, give me a 4 and help me go to Namagunga. You know, because my dad had made that
after
the target.
that conversation.
Yeah. So he gave me the 4 and I went to Namagunga. But I remember my first time, my parents gave me everything. Like I went to school like a rich girl. And then I get into school and I am so worried about them. Because I was like, my dad just left his job. I don't know what's going to happen. And I was praying every day. So in the middle of the term, the headmistress comes and takes with a van and takes me and says, we need to go back to Ginger. So I can be very melancholic and pessimistic. So I was thinking, what has happened? What has happened to who? So I get to Ginger and I have one, and my parents are there and there's a whole party and they're like, you're the best girl in PLE in Eastern Region. And UCB, which was Uganda Commercial Bank, it's now Stanbic, I think, had given me a scholarship for O level. And that day, they gave my parents a check for my fees for first term and school requirements. Do you know, Crystal, I was just there crying because people looked at it as, oh, she did well, or maybe you get it.
But they don't understand how significant it was.
I asked God to take care of my parents and their need to look after me in school and he's done it. So God paid my fees, the whole of O level, and that was a miracle. So I think that I would not just credit myself or my parents, which I know that contributed, but I would really credit God. He's been good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but also like you said, your parents had very high expectations.
Oh, very high.
And they weren't trying to pamper you as a child. You know, like, don't worry, we'll figure it out. They're like,
if you were the first in class, they would ask you why you didn't get a 90 if you got an 89. Whoa. So my mom used to tell me that my mom made me immune against flattery because she told me that those who love you cannot flatter you.
They will
she
tell
believes
you
in the hard
truth,
you know, tough love.
Tough love.
Then my dad just had high expectations. So, and then my dad was also an overachiever. He was like an A student. So it was very difficult because at the time I went to the village just to disprove him and I asked my grandfather for his papers because I was tired. You know,
I think we've all done that.
Like when I was in school, this and this and this. So I went and I was like, Grandpa, give me daddy's papers. I cannot deal with this when I was in secondary school. And you know, you're struggling with chemistry, science. And then he's like, oh, you know, I was all this. So I went and he was so bright. So So it cast a long shadow. So I did want to make them proud. Yeah.
Was the pressure the same for your siblings as well? Do you know?
No, I feel like my siblings had a ball of it. Mostly because they were really good. You see, Crystal, I was such a terrible child to my parents. I was so naughty. I caused so much grief. I burned down my mom's shop when I was 8.
What
just
do you mean?
Playing with matches. Like, she came home and it was ashes. I used to climb this coconut tree and...
Please don't hate on climbing trees.
No, but
Those are some of my best memories.
Yes, but no, I loved climbing trees. But this coconut trees was strange because you have to climb with a rope.
Yes.
Yeah.
And your
feet
kind of stay. Oh,
and
you came
sometimes
down.
they had to pay someone to just get me down because I didn't know how to come down. So I was really naughty. And I remember this particular story. I used to have this big group of boys that I led for some reason. I was really tiny, but they were my friends and would just get up to no good. And one of the things that they'd even shoot birds. I remember that. And I just, you know, as a tomboy, and I gave my parents so much grief because I was also a girl and I was also skinny and I was weak. So I'd hurt my knees.
And that was not expected of you as a girl.
It wasn't expected of me.
Yeah.
So that's why I had this whole gender thing of wanting to be a boy because my brothers, you know. So my brothers were very good. They were...
No, this is serious, by the way. You actually really wanted to be a boy. She didn't understand why she was born a girl.
Yeah. So the reason I wanted to be a boy is because boys seem to
have
do
all
the
the fun?
things I wanted to do.
Okay.
Because even the people I wanted to be like, I was reading about Sherlock Holmes. I was reading about Perry Mason. I was reading about... I don't know. I blame my parents for their influences. You know, Robert Ludlum, all the stars there, Jason Bourne, all those things that you read even from primary are about men. So I didn't want to be the femme fatale in those books. I wanted to be the detective,
the lead character.
Yeah. And yeah, so I was so I caused a lot of trouble. And my parents...
But
I felt like the only way.
That way, chances are
no,
they don't.
Oh, they do. You should hear them.
I was hoping time had passed.
No, but one thing that so I think academics was the only way I could make it for my parents.
Okay.
Up to my parents.
How long
now
did
my
you
brothers
feel
were
that
good in
way?
everything. I think I felt that way for a long time because I was not, you know, I struggled with identity. When you're a child of very sober parents, you know, who are looked at, you know, as sober, related
very focused,
people, very focused, very calm, introverted parents. My parents are both introverts. And then you get up and you're a sanguine, you're singing everywhere, you have 1,000 friends, you're loud, you're naughty. My brothers were more like my parents, so it felt... Sometimes my mom would be like, "Madam." So there's that thing. And then I watched Sound of Music. And sometimes my family would sing, you know, how do you solve a problem, like Pheona instead of Maria. So I knew that I was that Maria person in my family.
Yeah.
And it made me have an identity crisis. So sometimes I'd accuse my parents of adopting me, or I was very imaginative. I had these flights of fancy. So I think one of the things that comforted me was reading Famous Five. There's a girl called Georgina who is called herself George, and she's a tomboy, and she had this whole identity crisis like me. So I was like, I know this girl. And then in my P7, I read Anne of Green Gables. And she was like me because I had a bad temper that I was praying about. And Anne had...
But you know what I find interesting is like you had such self-awareness at a really young age.
Yes, I did. Because that's why I even got saved. Because I was so naughty, and yet my mom had taught me to have a relationship with Christ. So every night I'd pray and ask God to change me, and then the next day I'd mess up again. So in P5 I come across, again, I was not where I was supposed to be. I had you know, when you're supposed to be going home and you take a detour. So there's a crusade. And this man preached. That was Pastor Kayanja. That time he was a small, you know, he had a small band. He was wearing some Chitenji outfit. And he says, if you want God to change you despite yourself, have Jesus come inside your heart. Come and accept him now. I went up that stage because I figured I have the magic now. Jesus will enter me and he will change me whether I want it or not. And I went there, and I believe that faith of a child. And I believe that day that when I gave my life to Christ, I was... So there were no Save-D churches in Ginger that I knew of. I kept going to St. Andrews. But I kept asking the vicar's wife questions about salvation, about the Holy Spirit, about my character. And then I read David, you know, the Psalms spoke to me. Because David was extremely like me. Like one moment he's doing good, one moment he's doing bad, then he's confessing, then he's... So that made me very self-aware. So by P7, I'd found people like Anne of Green Gables that made me comfortable in my skin. I started liking that. And then I went to this amazing school. The pressure in Ginger was a lot because you see it's a small community. So they identify you early. I remember I was a prefect from P1 to P7, yet I changed schools.
Oh.
So I went from Narambaya to Victoria in P5, in P6, and I'm like, Fuchs, all that pressure is off. They made me a prefect immediately. So I was like, what is this, you know? But when I went to Namagunga, being a leader was elected. You sought people out, you campaigned. So I didn't. I didn't volunteer for anything. I read my novels. I discovered that I just love being on my own. And I loved nature. And then I loved structure. Namagunga was very structured. So I found security in structure, you know. And I was so introverted that every friend I made in Namagunga is somebody who actually had to seek me out. Yeah. So I sort of found myself. I started writing, journaling. It was beautiful, but I still loved people and I still did naughty things. Like I remember my S1, I wrote down everyone's name in my class and then wrote down what I thought about all of them, and someone found the book.
Oh no!
Oh, that was...
And you were just starting.
That's terrible. I was just starting, yes.
Building these relationships.
Pardon?
You were just building these relationships.
I know,
so.
but I hadn't written bad things. It's just, it just sort of creeped them out. They're
like, you mean you're just sitting there looking at everyone? And
so in S2, we had this group, we were in the laundry room and we were supposed to do an inter-class competition. And I told these guys, I know the Eskimo anthem. And they're like, you do? Sing it. So I sang it. Of course I didn't know the Eskimo. So I sang it. And they believed me.
Oh my Lord.
And I remember thinking...
Pheona, what is that?
And I remember thinking, I am such a criminal. So my best friend Precious told me, Pheona, we have to do something to make up for this. So she ran for Miss Namagunga and she won. So we participated in our first pageant in S2 and I was the one directing, you know. But it was really me trying to make up for my lie. I realized...
It's the most bizarre one.
Yeah,
wow.
But what was more bizarre is that everybody believed me. But I knew if they asked me to sing it again, I wouldn't remember. So I think that scared me. It was like, you have to choose now. Because you can lie.
Easily.
You can be anything.
Yeah.
Or you can be you.